Everybody has branzino on the menu now.
Mark the time.
Yeah.
Branzino, farm-raised branzino, is the airline chicken breast of seafood. Period. I
You've
said
been-
it. Make a bumper sticker.
Welcome back to Industry Only at the Cheese Store. This is season 2 of the podcast. I can't believe we're doing it again in this tasting room, dungeon, whatever you want to call it. The food here, it's not props. You can actually eat this food. Today we're going to eat some of this food with the great Michael Cimarusti, the chef at Providence, and then ask him some questions. But mainly Dom's here just to sell him more product, it seems
Yeah, I
like.
have an order form in my pocket.
All right. So Providence, and I mean, this is a crazy thing to say, but you're going to be coming up on 2 decades next year, right?
That's right. Yeah,
So, I mean-
June 17th is
Yeah.
20 years.
So that's legitimately an institution. And the thing about your restaurant, I mean, I think I've been covering it for the better part of a decade. I wasn't here for the first decade, but I was here for most of the second, is that you're always evolving. I think I came maybe 6-7 years ago and I saw that you just put in the rooftop garden. And then recently you did this renovation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this other thing that's out there too that I want to talk to you about. But let's answer this question first. You know, why keep making all these changes? What makes you want to keep going?
Because without evolution and without change, I think it gets boring. Like you just keep running over the same ground, but that to me would get really boring, and there would be, for me, I wouldn't be as inspired to get up every day and go to work. I'm still hopeful. Like I spent my time driving over here, talking to Tristan, our longtime
Yeah, your
chef.
long time, yeah.
Yeah, he's been there ever since we opened the doors. But, first I started texting him, but I figured he was at home, so I didn't want to bother him. I just sent him a couple texts like, this
You went
is
to
what
his
I
house?
wanna... Huh?
You went to his house?
No. He actually does live over in Santa Monica. But I was like texting him in the morning about, this is what I want to do today. This is your mission. Like, these are the things, this is what we worked on, because this is what we worked on last night. I think we can take it a couple steps further. I want to at least be able to look at it when I get back before service starts. Not that it's going to go on the menu today, but and then he was like, "Oh, I'm already at work." Just So then I called him because I figured, if he's not at home, I can call him. And so I called him and we talked about it. But it's every day. It's like that. Like tweak
give us an example.
little tiny things.
What did you ask him?
Well,
to do?
right now we're working on a new duck dish. So we have this incredible fig tree that's we've been propagating for 20 years at Providence, that now gives us probably 150 pounds of figs in a year or something like that. And so we're working on a dish with our Liberty Farms dry aged duck. With we usually do something with the legs, and usually we turn it into like a sausage or a mousse, and then we try to use the liver of the duck as well in the dish. And so the variation we're working on now, it's like a thin layer of mousse with a sausage made from the legs in the center, with your lardo. Like we
I'm
grind.
Sorry,
it's like,
can you say that again? No, I don't think anyone heard you.
So Dom's lardo, which we do 65% duck meat and then 35% of the ground lardo, because the duck leg has no fat. So you need to add fat if you're going to make a sausage. And then some dried fig in there and stuff. And then wrapping the whole thing in a green crepe that's made with the leaves from the fig tree. So we puree the fig leaves and we fold that in the crepe batter. And then wrap the sausage in that once it's cooked. And then we crisp it up with a little feuille de brique on the outside. And then we serve a slice of that alongside the breast. And the cool thing about fig leaves, which you guys may know, is they have this flavor that is it's not reminiscent of coconut. It is coconut, which I think is just such a fascinating thing. Like that they're like peach leaves taste like almond, fig leaves taste like coconut. So there's all these like incredible things going on in the plant world that like, unless you really dig, you never find them, and so anyway, that's what we're working on. And so Tristan's mission today is to work on that, we got it. We did it a couple times last night, and now we need to figure out how we can do it 40 times a day. You know what I mean?
You know what's great about this? We just heard duck, sausage, lardo. Providence is a restaurant that's known for sustainable seafood.
Yes. Well, you got to have meat. And by the way, like you're right about that, Andy.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love cooking duck, and I absolutely love cooking beef and pork, all sorts of things. Like, but fish is something that, from a very early age, like really captured my attention. If you would have asked me when I was 10 years old what I wanted to be, I would have told you a marine biologist. But then, whatever my teenage years happened.
So no, but
wound up in the kitchen.
actually, I think that's really fascinating. So, like, how did you, like, why fish? How did you get involved in doing fish above anything else? And how did you actually get involved in cooking?
Yeah, well, I started as a fisherman. My grandfather introduced me to it up in Rhode Island, both freshwater and saltwater fishing. And then my father and I would fish a lot. And then, cooking and food was always a big thing. I'm Italian American on one side and British on the other. Yeah, the good half. Yeah. So like Italian American one side and the other half is English. But my grandparents, on the English side, they grew up they lived all their lives once they emigrated from England in Rhode Island. And to me, like New England, especially New England coastal cuisine, it's one of the most distinctive American cuisines that exists. Full stop. Like, I think really, Southern cuisine, yes. The cuisine of New Orleans, Cajun cuisine or Creole cuisine, yes, those are all like super distinctive regional cuisines of the United States. And I think you can put New England cuisine, squarely in that category of just incredibly special regional cuisines that are, to me, that food. The food of coastal New England is some of the most delicious food in the world. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So okay, so you have this pretty amazing background. Your parents are from Italy. Well, your dad's from Italy.
My father, yeah.
Father's from Italy. Mom's from New England. What about like? So you get involved in fishing. You want to be a marine biologist. You get involved in fishing, but then like, how did you like actually enter into the restaurant space?
Well, like I said, food was a super important part of my upbringing. Like on the Italian side, it was my grandmother and my great grandmother cooking at home. Up in my grandmother lived in Lindenhurst when I was a kid, Long Island, and my nanny and my great grandmother lived in Queens or Yonkers. She bounced back and forth between my uncle's homes, so weekends in the city, big long meals that started at as soon as you walked into the apartment with a spread not unlike this on the table, sesame semolina loaves and sliced cold cuts and provolone and
right.
And all
so
that
food
kind of
was just
stuff.
always around you.
It was always around. And then meanwhile, like while that was going on and we'd catch up and whatever, my grandmother and my great grandmother would be cooking.
To say there's something on the stove,
pasta
right?
and a roast and whatever else, and then start with antipasto, then the pasta, then a roast, and then a big bowl of fruit, and then the table would get cleared and it would be time for poker. And that was like, that was every Sunday in the city.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and you probably grew up with the same kind of thing, the same kind of memories. And also in our family, like the rules were, I might have been a poker player, but in our family, the rules were if you didn't have a job and if you couldn't, place your own bet with your own money, you couldn't play poker. So
we should start a game down here. You were suggesting it.
I think this is a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a fucking
Who says we don't
idea.
do them now?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah. We've had some. I know who's been down here before. Not with them. All right.
Yeah. But you need to get some kind of system in here to suck up all the cigar smoke.
Yeah. Providence is, and for many years, it's been upper echelon of fine dining in Los Angeles. That's very much a choice. Mm-hmm. You have your other restaurant, Connie and Ted's, which is obviously more casual. That's more like a New England coastal seafood restaurant. Providence is straight up fine dining. So why did you want to go this path? And, why have you wanted to maintain it for so long?
Probably because I'm like, hard-headed. Like in my career in New York, before I moved to Los Angeles, it was always, I spent most of my time at Le Cirque. Mm-hmm. And then, during that time, I started in New York City with Larry Forgione at an American Place. And that was kind of upper.
Was that your first
end.
Cooking gig? Like
not my
real
first
cooking? No, but like
in the city it was. Yeah.
That's got to be insane during that time.
It was great.
Yeah.
Larry was amazing. Larry, who was, Richie, who was Larry's chef, was amazing. I still remember Norris, who's a Jamaican guy who was our steward that curated all these incredible ingredients from all across the country. That to me, that was like a lesson in sourcing. It was what gave me my appreciation for, the very finest ingredients. And that's why I do business with you, Dom.
Oh,
no, it's true.
Man,
because you have a nose for, for everybody that doesn't know.
We have the same size nose, bro.
Yeah. But Dom, a proprietor here at the Cheese Store Beverly Hills, has a nose for just the finest ingredients in the world and the ability to appreciate them. And those are two traits that you have to have. Number one, as a chef, and number two, as a purveyor of fine goods, which you are. and that's what makes you the best.
Oh, thank you, Chef. But I love how excited you were getting talking about it. Like it's just it's not even work, right?
We're
Like, it's
gonna
just
cut
fun.
this
Like, we
commercial
love it.
for the cheese store, right? Because like I don't even know what the fuck we're recording right now.
This is why I'm walking out with the pasta.
Yeah, whatever you want, take it.
No, but it's true, man. I mean, like, this is something I always talk to the cooks about at Providence as well. It's like, as a chef, like one of the skills you have to develop is the ability to recognize quality, and whatever it is, whether it's beef or duck or chicken or cold cuts or olive oil or vinegar or sea salt, like you have to be able to recognize quality. And if you can't, like it's going to be a very difficult road for you.
Well, let's talk about.
But getting back to your question, like I said, I'm hard-headed, and I cut my teeth in fine dining restaurants in New York, and then went and worked in France, and and so like when I left Water Grill, and then my partners Donato and Chrissy Echeverry, who's my wife, when we opened Providence together, like there was never any question what it was going to be. It was going to be the best restaurant that we could create. That's what it was going to be there, and there was no plan past that, and whatever that meant. The best food we could muster, the best service we could muster, the best level of hospitality that we could muster. That's what it was always going to be. And it's still an evolution. We're still improving. We're still learning. We're still getting better.
And it's wild that you did this for so long, because it's like you've gotten the James Beard love. Obviously, there are multiple years where you're number one in the 101. You did this, in many years where there's no existence of the Michelin Guide or no idea that it would even come back to LA.
Right.
And so you just did this where you were sort of like, setting your own bar, right? Like chasing your own stars, even though the quote unquote stars don't exist. I have to ask now, I mean, you've renovated. There is this one thing that's eluded LA. There's been no restaurant that's gotten 3 Michelin stars. I mean, I know you think about it. Josiah obviously thinks about it. Aitor's going to think about it when he reopens. So what are your thoughts on like what it takes for LA to get that, whether it's you, somebody else? And also you did renovate. So you're sort of thinking about things that you could do to possibly get it, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course that's the goal, at some point. And it's a difficult thing to say out loud because,
Right. That's why I said it for you.
Yeah. Of course, I mean, it would be an incredible honor. It'd be the culmination of a 30-year career, 30-year plus career. And I also think the chase is probably more exciting than retaining stars, the chase for stars. But anyway, I mean, it's something that's on my mind. But I also feel like, and I've said this before, it's like if that's going to happen, it has to happen on our terms. Like you can't, yes, I mean, we renovated, but we renovated with a specific purpose in mind, and that was to change, obviously the look of the restaurant, but also the flow of service and to improve the guest experience. And that's always what it's about. We didn't do that for Michelin because Michelin doesn't pay the bills. Like what pays the bills are the, 65 or 70 guests that come every night. That's what pays the bills, and it's pleasing them, exceeding their expectations, and exceeding our own expectations for our performance is what it drives me, and it also is what drives Donato. Because I can tell you, like I've eaten like just like you all around Europe and Japan and all these places, and eaten in Michelin-starred restaurants, and I really believe like when you get up into the 2 and 3 star range, like drawing that line between what's 2 and what's 3 is very, very difficult, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of it's just
difficult.
nuance.
So like it kind of is a little bit blurred.
For me, it is because I feel like
I think for everybody it is.
Yeah, well, if I knew what it took right now, I'd go back there and do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, but until that becomes clear, I'll just keep doing what we do, which is just constant.
Right. See, so this is what
improvement.
I'm saying. Like, I think that this is something really like you're not trying to achieve something. You're being yourself, doing your thing. And if you get that recognition, great. And if you don't,
Well,
that's
no, but
fine
he
too,
is trying to achieve something. He's trying to create like he said, the best restaurant that the
He's
three
trying to
of
create
them
the best
could
version of
possibly
himself.
create, right?
Yeah.
So that
Like-
in itself is the goal.
That is the goal.
I mean, I think it's incredible, and I have to say, like, when you get to that level, like, and first of all, it's hard enough to get one. Then you have a green star too, right? Like, what was that like trying to get? Oh, not even trying to get. I mean, I'm sure you just got recognized for what you're already doing, but like, how? I mean,
Well, no,
that's a hard star to
that's
get
been
as
the
well.
focus of your restaurant
Yeah.
the whole time.
What is the
To
green?
be-
Let's tell everybody
to be-
what the green star is. Like, what does that even mean? Because I had to like until you got it, I didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Yeah, so a green star is given to restaurants that, you know, have an ethos of sustainability. So, I mean, frankly, I felt like they were a little
So does that mean you
late to the
recycle?
party. They were a little late to the party, I think, in giving us ours.
Right, 'cause that's been the whole model of
yeah,
Providence.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
mean, you know, so I mean, back in the day when I talked about sustainability, what I was really talking about was how we sourced our fish. But now, like after, you know, many years, like I realized that it's so much more. And so I mean, it's recycling, it's composting, it's, you know, I mean, we have, you know, a garden upstairs on the rooftop of the restaurant so that we can
Yeah, it's amazing.
we can pick what we need, and we don't have to, you know, we're not buying, you know, all sorts of stuff that comes in whatever type of packaging. You know, we make honey up there to pollinate the garden. You know, all sorts of things. To me, it's like, it's even like, you know, being on top of our purveyors and saying, look, like we love this product, but we're not going to keep buying it if it only comes in a plastic jug. Get it to us in tin or get it to us in glass. But if it's going to be in plastic, I'm sorry, I have to find another source.
Yeah.
For that same ingredient, something that fits the same bill, flavor wise, quality wise, all that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to keep buying it if it's in a plastic container. So you know, that's part of what we are always working on as well. It's, you know, I mean, it's one of those things I'm glad Michelin is doing it, because if anything, like, you know, inspiring young cooks and young chefs to try and earn that accolade, I think is just as important, if not more important, certainly for the planet, if people have that in mind, you know, because if you leave a scorched earth behind you in order to earn stars, like what's the fucking point?
Right,
Because
right.
at a certain point, we all have to be concerned about, you know, whoever is downstream from us.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so, yeah, that's, I mean, as you said, that's something that you know, that I've been thinking about for a long time, but, you know, again, that's another part of the restaurant I feel like we still have.
Yeah, you were ahead on a lot of this though, because I mean, one thing that you said that was striking to me is that, like, you know, you have to sort of recognize quality wherever it is, right? Whatever it is. The thing that you were able to do that I find pretty remarkable, that I give you a lot of credit for, is you were finding ingredients that, you know, people weren't really wanting to use, and you just decided the quality is here. Rockfish is a great example, right? Rock cod, whatever people want to call it. I remember when Major Domo opened, Dave Chang was telling me that he was serving this fish, and he said, well, you know, this used to be a trash fish. At this moment, it's like, yes, I fucking know what Providence did too. But can you talk about how you found something that essentially fine dining restaurants, you know, would not want to serve, and you decided, I'm giving this a showcase?
Yeah. Well, I think, to me, like, that's one of those examples where, you know, where it came about through relationships. It came about through like that Dr. Dish program that we launched. And, you know, and again, like those were the kind of fish like rockfish you're talking about, or black cod. And there's lots of rockfish varieties here that are harvested here in Southern California. But they were, you know, a group of fish that was just kind of never really respected for what they were. And oftentimes were, you know, caught in mass quantities once the stock was restored.
Right.
Caught in mass quantities, sold oftentimes already in the fillet form with no skin, and then, you know, fishermen or mongers could call them whatever they wanted to call them. It's rockfish, it's rock cod, it's whatever. And then like once we started working with Dr. Dish and like started exploring some of these different types of rockfish, like the thorny head, like vermilion, like copper rockfish, all these different species, like it quickly became apparent to me like there was real quality here. And like for years I've been looking way past our shores for the type of fish that we would serve, not really knowing that there was like all this quality right there. But it also took there needed to be a change in the market. And that change came about in the form, I think, of, well, number one, like publicizing the fact that these fish really had their own inherent quality, and that they could stand alongside anything that would come from the East Coast or anything that would come from Europe, and certainly would trounce the shit out of anything that came out of a farm in Italy, a farm in Spain, a farm in Greece, a farm in Turkey, wherever. Like, so much more quality, so much more integrity, so much more flavor. But they need to be handled properly, and they needed to be respected for what they were. And now you've got all these guys, which I think is incredible. And I think I think you can trace these origins back to Dr. Dish to a certain extent, and a couple other factors that you have these captains now that are fishing in Southern California that have learned the technique of ikejime and understood that the.
Can you explain what that is? I have no idea what you're talking
it's a
about.
method of like.
I didn't know you spoke Japanese.
Yeah, ikejime and shinkejime are two different techniques. Ikejime is an act of like killing a fish with a spike to the head, directly into the brain, and then shinkejime you run a wire down the spinal cord of the fish, which deadens the nerves immediately, kills the fish in the most humane way possible, and then you bleed the fish, which once you bleed the fish, then because you spike the fish, you deaden the nerves to the to the body by using that wire, but the heart is still beating, so you bleed the fish, and the heart will pump out the majority of the blood from the fish, and then what's left behind is a fish of like very, very high quality that has the ability to be aged. And the flavor that's revealed when you do that is unlike if I had a ikejime rock cod here and a regular rock cod that was killed in a normal way, where it just was basically left in a bucket to die of his asphyxiation. If I cook those for you right now side by side, there would be a clear difference between those two fish.
What's the difference?
Flavor. The ikejime fish would be clean. It would have, it's able to reveal more of its true flavor because it doesn't have all this other stuff going on. Like, when you kill a fish, just let it sit there on the dock and die, or on the deck and die. There's all this lactic acid that builds up in its flesh, and that changes the flavor. There's all that, all that blood that still is being pumped through the flesh, which changes the flavor. So what you're going to get out of ikejime is something that's much cleaner. And then if you take that fish a step further and then age it for a few days, it's going to develop even more flavor, much more umami. And much more nuance.
So you're a proponent of dry aging now because
I am.
everybody's talking about it.
Well, I have a
Yeah,
question.
but-
So is aged fish better than fresh fish?
It can be. It depends upon the species. Like not all fish are meant to be aged. And it depends upon fat content. But final point here, especially about ikejime and this rockfish thing, is that I think that what that situation has created is like now you have guys that are out there that are harvesting less fish, that are bringing to the market a much higher quality fish and getting a much higher price for it. So, you go out, if you
it's changing the market.
It's changing the market. And it's also, if you think about it, for the biomass that are out there to be harvested, it's a much better thing because they're treading a lot more lightly on the resource and getting the same money for it, which is, that is the best of all worlds. Because, if you have a guy that's out there and he's looking to catch 2,000 pounds because he only gets, $2.50 a pound at the market, well, he's better off if he goes out there and he catches 1,000 pounds and now he can get $7 or $8 or $9 for it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's changing the fisherman's fortunes. It's bringing a higher quality product to market, and the resource is the one that truly benefits because, they can catch less and make more.
Yeah.
It's, and if I swear, if I'm going to Rhode Island this weekend to do like some promotional stuff with the city of Providence, which is great. I know.
Dude,
I love
give
it.
him a plug, man. We get a little
and I get to
sponsor
go-
out of this deal.
I'm going fishing.
It
and
took them a while to get around to this. That's
Oh my God.
amazing.
But
Finish your thought. Yeah.
well, but there's, I was talking to a chef over there that I'm cooking with on Monday, and he was telling me like now in the East Coast, like they're starting to see more fishermen that are adopting this technique as well of ikejime, which is, I was so heartened to hear that news because I feel like, the commercial fishing industry in this country, it began in Gloucester, Massachusetts, right?
Sure.
And that's, those are some salty dogs over there, right? But if people in that region are starting to come around, I think that's an incredible thing for the American fishing industry, because I feel like it's one of those industries that it needs to come around, it needs to change, and it is. And the best fishermen are also the best stewards of the environment, which is another incredible thing, because they understand that if they contribute to these solutions, that their son, their daughter, their grandchildren may still have the ability to make a living from the sea.
So if obviously I know that you know that because you work with all of these fishermen and stuff like that. Like, how do I know how the fish was bled out? Like if I'm a consumer,
you're gonna know.
No,
you're gonna know because
but,
you're gonna be paying more for it.
Right, but I guess like if I'm a consumer, like are they doing that like in a marketplace that I would go to buy fish? Like are they
If you go to the
advertising
joint,
that?
If you go to the
Yeah,
joint
yeah,
in Sherman Oaks,
They actually advertise it.
oh sure. Like we're working with a fisherman now out of Seattle. Guy's like super impressive. Tom Kelly's his name. Kelly's Premium Fish is what he calls his product. And
How did he come up with the name?
it's a great question. But he, he said, I got this beautiful like package in FedEx, and I opened it up. And it was like this leather bound brochure, and it just said Kelly's Premium. It was like stamped leather, Kelly's Premium Fish. And I opened it up, and there's this whole story about this guy and his operation, where he has a permit for Pacific salmon, so that could be cohos, kings, pinks, sockeyes, ground fish up in the Seattle region, and halibut. Which they have halibut up there. It's not the same as Alaskan halibut. It's not the same as the halibut we have down here, but it's a beautiful, beautiful fish. And he pressure bleeds all salmon and kills them ikijime, and he does the same thing with the halibut. So like incredible quality. And he also said each fish comes with a little gill tag on it that has a QR code that will take you to his website, and it'll tell you where that fish was caught.
Yeah, I've heard stuff like that. That's wild.
Yeah, and we were getting halibut from him. Halibut has had a harder time finding lately, but we are still getting all of our king salmon from him right now, and the quality is just remarkable. It's the best king salmon. I mean, if we could still be catching it here in California, I'd be using California king salmon. But short of that, which right now there is no commercial harvest in California, this is the best salmon I've ever worked with, and we are aging his salmon for up to a week, and the quality just gets better and better and better. And like you cut into those fish, and like you can literally see the fat on the flesh, and you can run your finger across the fillet and feel it, and it's like you just dipped it in olive oil or something. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And when the fish are that perfect and that pristine coming through the back door, you have the ability to age them, and they will only improve. And it's not about, they don't develop fishy flavors. They don't develop any of that. It's more about, they develop their own flavor. They become more, the flavor is just, whatever you think salmon flavor might be.
Right, it clarifies what the fish is.
Yeah, exactly. It's that compounded, 2, 3, 4 times.
Right.
It's really incredible.
And is aging something, like how recently did you start aging your own fish?
Not that long ago, honestly, like, pandemic on.
Right.
And I learned a lot of what I know from our friend of the joint.
Oh, all right.
From Leeway.
So Leeway really is the dry aged evangelist then.
I totally believe that, and he's so generous with his knowledge, and and I called, when I first started, and I didn't have the proper equipment. I wasn't happy with the results that we were getting, and then I bought one dry ager. So shameless plug for the dry ager. And
also not a sponsor, but we just like to name shit.
But anyway, long story short, now we have 4. All
right, so yeah,
because
so
we just kept, like, well, maybe we could age that. Well, maybe we could age this, and like, it becomes like a thing. So now, we have a whole room basically just full of dry agers, and but it has changed the quality of our food, and it has helped us reveal flavor in the fish that we were using that we didn't know existed before.
Right.
And so I mean, I got to give it up to Leeway. Like, again, like he's a
season 1 podcast guest. You should go listen to that one.
He's a crazy fisherman.
Yeah.
He loves the fish like I love to fish, and he has a true respect for it, and he understands quality.
Right.
And he guided me along the way. When I had questions, I would call him up or I would text him. I was like, hey, what's going on with this? Like, what humidity level should I have this at? What temperature do you?
He is a crazy fisherman.
All this kind of stuff.
I don't want to blow up his spot. He's probably not going to be happy that I told this story, but I was in New York with him recently, and we're with a pretty prominent seafood chef who's just like, oh, Leeway, sometimes one of these days I want to go fishing with you. And Leeway's just like, oh, okay. And then he looks at me and goes, I don't really just take people fishing. It's like, if you don't fish the way that I do, I don't want to go fishing with you.
Yeah, because then you're just a burden.
Right. And then he starts telling me like all these other prominent people have asked him to fish. And I'm like, all right, well, we're not going to talk about this in the restaurant. But the fact that he's that serious about it, it's funny. A little bit is him being a curmudgeon, but a little bit is this is just that's in a weird way. It's his work, but it's also like his leisure. And he doesn't want anybody to disrupt that. It was very funny to me. You know?
How do you tie a knot? How do you do this? How do you do that? Like, shut up and fish.
You don't want to go on a fishing expedition with me. I'll be getting sick.
Right.
Actually, the last time I went fishing, the last time.
But I don't remember you getting sick.
Right,
no, because I put the patch on my ear.
Yeah.
So, all right, we've been talking about ingredients. Ingredients are one thing, but let's sort of talk about the way that you cook. Because if you haven't been to Providence and you go for the first time, one thing that's striking is just, and I mean, maybe this is the wrong word, but in a way I think it's the right word, like the intensity of seafood that's on your plate. Because you might make a scallop dish and there's scallop 4 ways on the dish, or you might have another dish. It's like, but this dish also has an ingredient that was cooked in seawater, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it really is just, this barrage of seafood, ocean flavors. Tell me about a dish or two that you like and just how you built that and how you intensified that sea flavor.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think.
Or tell me, I mean, I think I had a scallop dish where.
Oh yeah.
Oh, God, I'll tell you right
the foam
now.
was scallop too.
Yeah,
right?
I'll tell you right now. I mean, this is a long time ago, but one of the best scallops. And when you first opened Italy,
Yeah.
I had that scallop.
Oh, the live one.
Oh
in the shell,
my God, that was
Yeah.
insane.
But that's utter simplicity.
Oh God, that was amazing.
But so the scallop dish you're referring to,
Yeah.
I think it was a stuffed morel, and so the morel. First of all, we get scallops from we have really one source up in Maine. Nancy Wynn is her name. She lives on Deer Isle, and Deer Isle is mostly lobster fishermen, and there are some scallop fishermen, and she used to work for a legend in Maine seafood. Her name was Ingrid Bengus, and then Nancy eventually split off and went on her own. And all she used to sell us halibut from Maine, which was incredible. But then when halibut started to become less and less sustainable, she said, "I'm not doing this anymore." So she didn't stop selling it. But anyway, her scallops just incredible. She only the absolute cream of the cream is what she sells. And and we get U10s. So most of the time, her scallops are 2 ounces and up, big ass scallops, which I think is a wonderful thing. And then, so what we do is on that dish, we save the best ones for cooking. The ones that are sometimes broken, they're hand shucked. A scallop is something that, it comes in a big ass shell. They're shucked at sea. Those guys are shucking for speed. So that sometimes there are certain scallops that just don't look as good. So those we would take and we would dehydrate. We would slice them and then we dehydrate them overnight. And some of those dehydrated scallops would go to make the sauce, where we would just take filtered water, bring it to a simmer, and for every, it was basically 1 to 4. So 4 parts water, 1 part dry scallop, and you just make an infusion, bring it up to a boil, take it off the fire, wrap it in plastic wrap. It's like you're making a scallop tea. And then that would be one part of the dish. And then we finish that with a little butter, and that would become the sauce. And then some of those other dried scallops we would take and turn those into a scallop XO. And then we would take some still other scallops and make a mousse out of them, and then fold the XO into that, and then stuff that inside a morel. And then we would roast the scallop. You steam the morel until it's fully cooked. And then we would glaze the scallop in the scallop tea. And then, like I said, and then we'd make the scallop broth with that same thing. So it's it's scallop 4 ways on one.
Yeah, scallop on scallop on scallop on scallop. I was about
That's
to say.
sick though, but no one thinks like that. That's amazing.
But that's the most incredible thing about scallops. To me, it's one of my favorite seafoods, and I feel like they get to, sometimes people come to Providence, they eat our scallops and go, "Oh, these are tough." No. This is the texture of a scallop.
balls on these people to actually...
No, but you know why? But here's why, Dom, is because in this country, you can take a scallop, you can harvest it, you can pump phosphates into that scallop in liquid form at up to 10% and still call it a scallop. So you can imagine, if you take a beautiful fresh scallop and you pump it with a bunch of water, what is that going to change? Mm-hmm. It's going to change the texture. Yeah. Well, you take a scallop that's just pulled out of the water and nothing has been done to it except it's been salted and roasted in a pan. It's going to have a very different texture than the average scallop that's out there. Right. And 99.9% of the scallops that are sold in this country are probably the ones that have been, to my mind, adulterated. Mm-hmm. They're not just fresh scallop, perfect scallop. A fresh scallop, when you hold it in your hand and you flick it like that, it looks like a lump. A scallop is like a white lump. But a fresh one, you hold it in your hand, you flick it like that, and they wiggle. They still move. The muscle still moves. That's crazy. And that's how when we serve our scallops, when you put a scallop in a pan, they kind of have this little lilt to them. They just kind of sit there like this. But so a shitty scallop that's been soaked would just sit there like this until you flip it over. And then, but a fresh scallop, when you put it in a pan and go, "Oh shit, it's getting hot in here," and then they shrink down. Right. So thank you.
All right, what's the difference between that was amazing, by the way. What's the difference between a white scallop and a pink scallop?
No difference.
No difference.
Yeah,
nothing to do with gender or any of that.
No, not that I know. Because every once in a while, we get, we'll get when during the season, which by the way, in Maine, December 1st to tax day usually, sometimes April 1st, it depends. But, we'll get them and we'll lay them all out. And, you'll have, if we get 120 of them, 120 will be white and 2 of them will be the color of like yellow cheddar cheese.
Really?
So it's like, okay.
That's my kind of scallop.
I don't know why.
But they all taste
color.
like scallop.
They all taste like scallop.
Right.
Yeah, and they're all perfect and pristine and beautiful. That's all I'm interested in,
Yeah.
Like all this farm raised bullshit that's out there. Like I'm just so sick of it. Like every restaurant you go to, Andy, how many restaurants you eat out? How many times you eat out in a week?
I mean, I try to do less and less, but sure, I'm at 4 restaurants a week.
All right, and of those 4, how many people have branzino on the menu? No, it's seriously. Answer the
5 out of
question.
4.
Huh?
Everybody has branzino
Okay.
on the menu now.
Mark the time.
Yeah.
Branzino, farm-raised branzino, is the airline chicken breast of seafood. Period. I
You've
said
been-
it. Make a bumper sticker.
Dude, you've been saying this to me for years, though, man.
I know.
Yeah, like I think the first time you told me was 3 or 4 years ago. So,
Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah.
So, okay. So,
It's true.
are
It's
you-
like I don't understand it. I really don't
I'm
understand
going to
it.
ask a really dumb question because
Yeah.
so in the back of my mind, when I think of something that's farm raised, like, are you, so if we keep catching all of these wild species,
Mm-hmm.
are we actually like, is farm raised? I always thought like, oh wow, it's farm raised, so like maybe that's a little better for the environment
Yes.
because we're not over catching.
There are
Dom,
what's
don't make me come over there.
no, because I actually, and of course, like everyone wants wild, whatever, and you always pay more for wild. But like, is there any type of like environmental assistance before you reach over? And I know you had a
Yes.
couple of glasses of prosecco too.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's Lambrusco. No, but seriously, like, is there any type of
Does it
benefit
go-
for the farm raised to
Yes.
kind of help the species grow and stuff like that on the wild side?
Yeah, but mostly the farm raised fish that I'm a big proponent of come between 2 shells. So mussels, clams, oysters,
Right.
gooey duck, all this kind of stuff. There are some fish that are produced by way of aquaculture that are good, that are not, let's not say good for the environment, but they're neutral.
Okay.
They do no harm. You know what I mean? And
Right.
but go ahead and take a look at that list. Here's an example: farm raised salmon. 99% of the production is not considered good for the environment or is red listed
wow.
by the Monterey Bay Aquarium. 1% of what comes to market in the United States is considered green, and that is king salmon that comes from New Zealand.
Right.
Working.
So there is just one example. And to answer the other question, no, a lot of these farms are not good for the environment because they raise fish in too high density and small spaces. They create a tremendous amount of effluent, and that puts all sorts of nitrogen into the ocean. And that take a look at like in Chile, the tremendous dead zones, massive dead zones that these giant salmon farms have formed, where they just put so much nitrogen in the water, killed everything. Then you have escapement. So that's just farm-raised fish escaping their enclosures, and which then inbreed with wild fish.
Which kind of messes up the whole.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you're putting and they oftentimes these farms put antibiotics into those fish. That's not a good thing. And then you got to think about the feed. Where does the feed come from? What are those fish eating? Most of the time they're eating like grains, like soy, wheat, this kind of thing, which is not part of a fish's diet. Like salmon aren't out there looking for, a nice, healthy loaf of sourdough. They're eating anchovies. You know what I mean? And all wild fish are eating, shellfish and invertebrates and other fish. That's what they're eating. So, when you feed a bunch of fish, when you feed fish mainly on grain and wheat, then what happens? Like everything tastes the same. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of fish meal in there probably, but the majority of their diet is what you would otherwise
You
feed a
should buy
chicken.
wild no matter what. Like that's the way to go.
This is also not the answer. And because look, these are first world problems we're discussing. If we want to feed a planet of 7 billion people, you have to farm raise fish. I don't deny that.
Sure.
But like people that come to us, people that come to my restaurant or any other, like high-end restaurant,
he's
like
talking about what
they're
he's-
looking for
yeah.
something better.
Sure.
And they deserve something better.
Of course.
You know what I mean? But I think the allure of fish like branzino is it's available 24/7, 365, and you know what the price is going to be, and you don't ever have to worry about it. But is that really a trait that is that makes something worthy of being on your menu?
We've had this conversation about commodity shrimp too, obviously, where it's just like everybody just knows they can add 4 shrimp to a salad at any restaurant that they're at.
But also why bother like going to the farmer's market and picking out just the right tomato and just the right lettuces and everything else, and then you go put it on a fucking airline chicken breast. Who cares? Like,
right.
Look for something better.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And keep them. I mean, at least some of the money. I'm not saying like not all the fish that we serve at Providence is not local, but a lot of it is. And one of the best parts about that is that we're keeping the money in the California economy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But like, fucking, go buy fish from Turkey or Greece or wherever. Like, it's just farm raised and thrown in a box, and with no regard for really the flavor of the product or anything else. Like, why bother with all this other stuff if like the thing that's going to be at the center of the plate has no flavor?
Yeah, I think you just pretty much explained what Providence is, right? Yeah. We sort of got around to that. So I want to ask you something else about Providence, which is very interesting, because you are doing fine dining in Los Angeles. You, Donato, and I had a great conversation on some publication that probably like isn't even on the fucking internet because nothing gets archived anymore, where you told me some great stories just about how wild it is to have a fine dining restaurant here versus, say, a city like New York, right? You've had people try to come in tracksuits. You've had somebody like somebody famous walk in with a pet, like look at the menu and like there's nothing here for me, just walk the fuck out of the restaurant. So since we had this conversation, can you tell me like another story or two of just something wild that's happened, given that you are a 2-Michelin-star fine dining restaurant and people still think they can come in their flip-flops or bring their whole family or bring animals or whatever?
I don't know. Like, here's an example. Like Saturday night, we had a party of 4. 3 people showed up, and then 4th person was like 40 minutes late. And then that person came and like, we don't eat any dairy at all, including butter, none. What can you do for us? And we're like, and then, our manager went into a panic. Like, what are we going to do? Like, they don't even want to come back and ask me. Like, but then eventually, and then, so she like, as industrious and hardworking as she is, she was like, well, they can have this. She just went through our menu and decided like what they could have. And then went back to them and said, look, we'll figure this out. We can, certainly make you several courses and we're happy to have you. Thank you. Thanks for coming. And then they were like, you know what? We think we're going to leave. Meanwhile, we have a wait list of 20 parties that would otherwise want to have been there. Said no to one of our longtime investors that wanted to bring them forward top because that person had a reservation. And then, 8 o'clock, you just get up and walk out.
See, I have a problem with that. People don't understand what it takes to put on a night. Whether it's 2 Michelin stars, like a night in a restaurant.
Well, also just think about this. Like, forget, yes, all that work. You're right. It's a tremendous amount of work just to get the doors open. But if you think about a restaurant as a business, and if we like on a Saturday night we do between 75 and 80 covers. So if a 4 top just gets up and walks out, what is that?
Yeah.
5% of revenue. Yeah. And what business, any business at any given time, whether you're a Fortune 500 company or a mom and pop restaurant, can just give up 5% of a day's revenue like that?
I know.
You can't. You know what I mean? And, I mean, you might get over it. Maybe something, you get lucky and somebody spends a bunch of money on wine or something like that.
Sell some of that bourbon you have at that.
Well, yeah, but that matters. You know what I mean? Like every bit of it. But plus also like, don't forget about the fact that we said no to a bunch of people because those people had a reservation.
Yeah,
I know.
That's how it always happens. All right, so I don't want to trigger anybody, but you know what? Anybody who'd be triggered by this can just get over it. We've talked about this before too, but how many of these quote-unquote dietary restrictions that you run into do you think are real, and how many of them do you think are preferences at this point, or just weird requests?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely get our share of that, and it becomes trickier and trickier. And every, so when we plan a menu and a new dish goes on the menu, like one of the things we have to decide also is like before that dish goes on the menu, okay, all right, what's the alternate if they don't eat shellfish or they don't eat this or they don't eat that? And so we have to, we say we have one menu, but we really have 3. We have the regular menu, we have a vegetarian menu, and then we have an alternates menu that we try to go to because especially like in a restaurant like Providence or something where it's like, we average 70 guests a night. And basically in a perfect world, 70 guests would come in and 70 guests would have the same menu, but it rarely works that way. So in order to keep things running smooth and on an even keel, like when somebody comes in and say, I don't eat shellfish, I don't want to see any onions, like no visible onions on the food. And I don't want to see like whatever, we have to be able to like quickly and and easily like have an alternate for whatever it is. And it over the years, you know, to your point, Andy, it's become harder and harder and harder to like figure out what the alternates are going to be, because every time you think you have all your bases covered, like, well, we got it, man, like we're good. And then somebody comes in with an allergy you just never heard of before, and they're like, wait, what? And then you got to go back to the drawing board. So
I always say, so when I go in, I hate cilantro. I grew up, I didn't grow up with cilantro. I hate cilantro. And when I tell people, like, I'm like, any allergies? No, but I just don't like cilantro. If it was on my plate, I would still eat it. I would not die. I'll be fine. But like, I just, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like, especially in LA, dude, it's like the Starbucks order. Like, you know, it's like 97 different things, and the guy in front, like
170, actually, 170.
Is it really?
That's the different number of permutations of Starbucks
It's crazy,
drinks.
man. But it's like, you know,
It was
it's
in
like,
the Times.
and also too, like, I wanna taste what you're cooking. I don't want to taste the alternate. You know what I mean? Like I want what you're doing. Like and even if I didn't like something, I'd still eat it. I mean, obviously, if you have an allergy, that's totally different. But like, I don't know.
But like things like no cilantro, like somebody comes in, like no big deal. Like there are certain people, like a lot of people can't eat grapefruit because they're on a statin. You know, like there are things that, you know, there are things that like you just come to understand.
Right,
You're like, okay,
sense.
whatever. It's like, you know, of course we'll figure something out for that. Or the no cilantro thing, like no big deal. My partner Donato doesn't like to eat onions in a dish.
He's always been a little weird. No, I'm just.
I'm glad you said that.
I actually wanted to ask you real quick. How did you meet Donato?
Oh, we worked together at the Water Grill.
When I
was the chef of the Water Grill, he for a number of years was the beverage manager, and he was great. Like right from the beginning, I was like, oh, this guy's fucking.
And
great.
you guys left there to open Providence?
No, he left to open Bastide. And
I
stayed
remember
behind.
that.
I stayed at Water
Joe
Grill
Pica, right?
Yeah, with Joe Pica, and I stayed behind for a couple more years, and then like Bastide was like As the World Turns over there. It was a soap opera all the time. It was like Alain Giraud, then Ludo Lefebvre, then Walter Mansky, then Joe hired away our chef de cuisine from Providence, Paul Shoemaker, because Joe would come to Providence all the time. We always make him, you know, when you have somebody like him that would come like once a month or twice a month or something, you want to give them something fresh, like something different. So that they're not just getting the same menu all the time. So he would come in and we'd always cook for him. And he was like, their food's pretty good. Maybe I can hire I know I can't hire Michael. Maybe I'll hire the next guy. And that's exactly what he did, which was fine. I was okay with it. Actually, Paul had left before and tried to do something. It didn't quite work out. And then Joe offered him the job. And then, he wouldn't work for Joe for a while. And then Joe was just like, you know what, I'm bored.
Right.
And then he closed the restaurant. So
I'm still just trying to figure out this Donato onions thing, because it's like, how did he go through life just like eating pasta sauce, for example?
Well,
you know?
if your mom's always cooking for you, it's a little easier.
Right. It's like no onions in the pasta sauce.
No, dude, I mean, you know, honestly, I can honestly say, like, you know, without Donato, there is no Providence. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, you know, it's like Jerry Garcia in the Grateful Dead. Like, you know, Jerry's gone. You don't carry. You can't carry on. Yeah. It's the same thing, you know. Or we have for the last 20 years we've been working together, and before that even a little bit, and like there's nobody else that I would rather have like suiting up on my team than him, you know. And there's, you know, I mean, obviously Donato is the cornerstone of the restaurant, but we have a host that has been standing at the front door for 20 years.
Wow.
We have a couple of captains that have been standing in the dining room for 20 years, a couple of runners and a couple of bussers that have been in the restaurant for 20 years. And the restaurant would not be what it is without all of those people, the efforts of those people. Not to mention Tristan Atchison, the chef de cuisine, who's, you know, him and I.
He's taking calls about duck breast on his way to work.
Yeah. But I mean, him and I have been cooking together more than 20 years now, you know, and he's just barely 40, you know. So it's like, you know, the restaurant is, I mean, any good restaurant I think has stories like this, you know. It's like, I mean, look at the French Laundry, like how many incredible chefs have gone through their doors and been there for good long chunks of time, and put their own stamp on that restaurant. Like, there are all sorts of, every restaurant is a collaboration, and it's the sum of many people's efforts. And we say it all the time when we have we call it a vibe check every day with the kitchen before everybody really gets rolling. But we, say it all the times, like every single person, like your best effort, every one of you is needed in order to get this restaurant ready to open the doors at 5:45. Without any one of those people, like you call that into question. Because there's no time for standing around and there's no slack. It's just, you got to come in, you got to pull your weight every day.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no off days.
No off days. Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. So let's talk.
Well, we do have 2 off days.
Yeah, well,
Sunday, Monday.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the actual off days that you have. Because one interesting thing about you is because there's a lot of people I know who are quote unquote in the seafood business, or they're around fish all the time, and then they want to eat anything but fish.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that you like to go around LA, or you like to go to your places, and you like to eat sushi at the very least.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell me where you go eat on your off days.
Right, let me just say,
I have
if
a
you
lot of
walked
favorites.
into my sushi restaurant, I'd be pretty fucking nervous. I'm not gonna lie, man.
No,
I
you
have
know what?
so
How do
much
you
respect
like-
for that art form.
And he goes to the type of sushi restaurants where they don't care who anybody is.
Yeah.
Too, which is what's great. Yeah. So tell us what some of your favorites are.
Well, I mean, if I get a night off during the week, I love Gen, Sushi Gen downtown. And, that place has been there since the 80s. Incredible sushi, very high quality fish because they do so much volume. And they do a very, very good omakase if you're in front of the right guy. Like they make a really beautiful omakase, and I love that. I go to Sushi Kaisen a lot, which is over in Arcadia near where the original Din Tai Fung was. It's in the same little strip mall.
I've never been to Arcadia. But
He has no idea. He has no idea that there's a Din Tai Fung, and then there's a Din Tai Fung next to the Din Tai Fung.
Yeah.
It would have blown his fucking
You mean
mind.
it's not in Century City?
That's right. But Sushi Kaisen is really good. And actually, they just opened a omakase counter too.
Oh, they did? I didn't
Those
know
guys,
that.
yeah, they opened a omakase counter in the same little strip mall, but around a corner. And I went there, and that was also very good. So I love that. I mean, I go to Golden Deli all the time because it's 5 minutes away. Go see my buddy Michael over there that works in the dining room. That always seems to be there when I go there. But I was just there on Monday actually for their pho. Like it's
Right. This is great Vietnamese food. Like you've probably seen pictures of the rolls at the very least if you haven't eaten them.
Yeah,
So.
Szechuan impression, but it's right near my house. That place, like, they have this eggplant dish that blows my mind. I swear to God, it's an eggplant dish that, like, your Italian grandmother could have made.
Really?
It's like steamed eggplant, but they use a Japanese eggplant. But it's steamed, and then it's covered with, like, this charred pepper relish.
Yeah. Sign me
That
up.
could be, I mean, if you... Honestly, it's really about finish. If you finish that little Mullen salt, a little fennel pollen, and some extra virgin olive oil, it could very well be Italian.
Lynn, the chef there, world travel, has fine dining aspirations, opened another restaurant that unfortunately, recently they announced that they're morphing into something. But
I love that food.
She's just influenced by all of LA too at the same time.
They have an incredible. They do a really great duck. If you like tea smoked duck, that's really good. Their impressive cold noodle is absolutely delicious. I could go on and on about their menu. I think and the thing that I love about it is that it's perfectly consistent. Like I go there, like that eggplant dish. Like once we discovered it, I order it every single time we go, which I've probably been there 15 times, and every time it's nailed, like nailed. And the consistency of the eggplant, it's beautiful. It's everything about that dish is, I think,
Dom's never going to the fucking Sandberg.
No,
Well,
I'll
you
check
should.
it out. No, I'll
but
check
I
it
know
out.
they have them on. I know there's one over here.
There's
too.
a Szechuan impression. I live in West LA. I live in West, and it's right. It's right. near my
that
house.
one's good too. But it's better in the SGV. It just is.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I swear I love that. There's a pork belly dish that they have on the menu too there that's just so killer.
So
it's
you
just
eat other things.
It's like a
besides
warm salad of pork belly with well, you wouldn't like it because it's got cilantro in it, but
I'll still
and
eat it. I'll try it.
this delicious chili oil with garlic and stuff. It's oh my God, that is so good. The cooking there is so good and so consistent.
Chef, what are you most excited about for the future right now?
I mean, the next dish, whatever that happens to be, it's always, like I said, I think the theme of this is that, and the theme of the restaurant is that it's an evolution, and every time we change something, it is hopefully a step forward, and and I really believe shit. I mean, that's life, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's every little move that you make, it should be in some way a step forward, and that's what we're trying to do. And the other thing is and I think this is another thing that's true of life. It's we have a dish that it's been on the menu for a little while, and keeps changing, little things, little tweaks here and there. yesterday we kind of made like a big change. Same group of ingredients, but completely different look. At the end of the day, it eats in a completely different way, but it's exactly the same ingredients. And I think it's like finding the challenge in that, like the minutia of things that keeps things interesting, at least for me.
Right,
You know what I mean?
This is his Branzino four-way dish. just so you
Oh,
know.
yeah, no, certainly
With a touch
not.
of scallop.
Actually, this is Ikejime black cod from a father and son fishing team up in
Oh, amazing.
Santa Barbara. That's like
Wow.
just absolutely beautiful. And, we aged it like 4 or 5 days. And it's been served with this incredible Brentwood corn from Dwelly Farms, which is like some of the best corn that I've ever had. And I grew up in Jersey, so I know good corn, okay? Yeah, I mean, and we just keep like tweaking it in small ways.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Again, like I think this is a life lesson. It's amazing. You change one or two little things about whatever it is, some problem. Change one or two little things, and it can really like bring about a result that is much better than you ever thought it could be. Even though again, it's the same exact. We didn't even change the description on the menu. It's exactly the same things. It's just thought about in a different way, tweaked in a different way, and to me, it makes it more enjoyable.
Wow.
And,
Yeah, what he's
and,
most excited about is tomorrow. It's cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
No, actually tonight.
Yeah,
Getting that
tonight.
duck figured out.
Oh, dude, I can't wait.
all right,
We
let me
gotta
ask
get
it in a different way, and I think this is a great way to wrap up. I mean, what are your thoughts on how you might want to celebrate 20 years of Providence next year?
Well, that is a great question, Andy, and I'm really glad you asked. We've invited a bunch of chefs from all around the world to come and cook with us,
Wow.
and we're not quite ready to like talk about that yet. But that's the idea. Is that I think next year we're working on scheduling 7 different dinners throughout the course of the
amazing.
year,
Sick.
and then and there'll be people that and people that you'll be excited to see. Some have cooked in Los Angeles before. Some have cooked at Providence before. Some have never cooked with us before. But like really excited about it. And I mean, we did it at 10 years and we had, everybody from Mauro Cologreco to Virgilio Martinez, Massimo Bottura, Enrique Olvera, like, some of the best chefs in the world came through the doors to cook with us for 10 years. And we're hoping to, to do something exactly along those same lines.
That's very
but with
exciting.
mostly different people. And we're thinking about we might do a party for 20 years. I don't know.
Will you invite me?
No.
Oh,
no.
man.
Of course not.
Just
man.
missed out. Bring Lardo?
No, just kidding.
Well, listen, I just want to say thank you very much. All kidding aside, I truly not only respect you as a chef, as a person, you're amazing. Thank you for what you do for our small business. Thank you for what you do for the community, for the restaurant community. It was such a pleasure to have you on. I really appreciate you
you.
taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I tell one more story?
Yeah, 1,000%.
So when I was there, let's say we just all sorts of chefs would come. And one time we had Ducasse, Roger Verger, Paul Bocuse, and Gerard Boyer. So that's 12 Michelin stars all cooking at the restaurant. And I mean, Verger, Bocuse, and Ducasse are, among the biggest names to ever exist in this world, right? In the world of culinary arts. And so, restaurant was usually closed on Sunday, but we opened the restaurant for this and it was titled The Dinner of the Millennium. And, Marvin Schengen from the Wine Spectator brought all the wines and he brought Johnny Walker, Blue Label, and he brought boxes of Cubans for after the dinner. And, so we as cooks, we were prepping for this incredible evening, but also we were prepping this epic meal for all the chefs to enjoy where, so we cooked this big dinner and the idea was we would serve it into the dining room and then we would just stay back in the kitchen and the chefs would eat along with Sirio Macchioni and whoever else, and so we did this big dinner, put it all out there. And, 5 minutes later, Paul Bocuse comes like wandering back into the kitchen and he goes, he asked us, what are we eating? And we're like, we're having ham sandwiches and we had like baguettes. We're making like jambon beurre. Yeah. So he came back in the kitchen, asked us that question, pulled a pocket knife out of his pocket, cut himself a baguette and then made himself a ham sandwich and he ate with us.
Oh, that's amazing, dude.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
It still gives me
Wow,
goosebumps
man.
like
That's
thinking
so
about
cool.
it. Yeah,
That's
it was
so
amazing.
cool.
It was amazing.
Wow.
I feel like fortunate
Yeah.
to have had
Pedigree.
experiences like
That's
that.
such crazy pedigree, man. Think about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's the spirit of hospitality right there and understanding, teamwork and fraternity, the fraternity of cooks, you know?
Right.
It was a beautiful thing. Wow. Never forget it.
Amazing. Michael, thank you.
Thank
you
you
again for everything,
Thank
bro.
you both.
Amazing afternoon. This was a lot of fun. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out, Michael. It's good to see you.
My pleasure.